Okay. Well, good evening. The Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees special meeting for Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Trustee Kermey is excused. Trustee Dorshevitz. Here. Clerk Borba here. Trustee Dempsey is excused. Trustee Heitman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by Finance Director Cindy Kushner.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cindy. Next up is item D, approval of the consent agenda, approval of the minutes from Tuesday, August 14th, 2018. Any comments or questions from the board?
Wait, do we want to approve the agenda? Or the consent agenda?
Yep, sorry, I skipped that. Item C is approval of tonight's agenda. Any comments or questions? Need a motion to approve?
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr.
I move
Heitman?
we approve the agenda as written.
Motion's been made by Trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Borba. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item D is approval of tonight's consent agenda. Yes, consent agenda. So this would be the approval of the minutes from Tuesday, August 14th.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Clerk.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Clerk moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item E is public comments and questions, limited to 3 minutes. This is not your only opportunity during the evening. There will be other opportunities on individual agenda items as long as they are germane to that item. And there's also another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Hearing none, let's move on to item F, new business, state OPEB appeal. Treasurer Clinton.
Thank you. Just as some quick background, we've talked about Public Act 202 a number of times now. This is the increased visibility that our pensions and OPEB are getting from the state. And it's really a three-step process. The first step is that you file this annual report. It's the Form 5572. And that was completed earlier this year. You file actually two separate reports, one for pension, one for OPEB. As expected, we passed the state requirement for funding for pension because we were roughly 65% funded, which met the threshold. And as expected, we did not pass the threshold for the OPEB. The threshold is 40% funded, and we're at 0%. So that was step number one. Step number two now is that we have to file a waiver within 45 days. That's Form 5584, which I've attached to this package and completed. The waiver is supposed to describe steps that the township has already taken in order to comply and get back in compliance with the underfunding. So the way I've completed this waiver is that a number of years ago, the previous board basically closed the fund and went from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan. Those are the previous actions that have been taken. So I have to submit the waiver report now within 45 days, so it's due September 7th. And then the third step in the process will be if the state does not accept our waiver, in other words, if they do not believe that we've done enough in order to remedy the situation, then the third and final step will be to apply or submit a corrective action plan. So this is step two in the process. In order to submit the waiver, I need board approval as well as Kurt's approval as Chief Administrative Officer in order to submit this to the state. So I'm asking for approval from the board to submit this waiver.
Okay, any questions from the board?
It's my understanding, Mr. Treasurer, is that the fact that we're proposing a millage increase can't be included as part of our remedy.
That's a future. That could be, if for some reason they do not allow our waiver, then that would be included in the corrective actions.
But it can't be part of the waiver.
it can't be part of the waiver. It's only the actions that have been taken in the past that are allowed on the waiver.
Now, based on what we know from other communities, this waiver will not be granted. I mean,
I don't know. So they're looking long-term. They're looking 25, 30, 35 years to correct a problem. And since the plan has been closed and the liability will go down over time as we pay as you go, it's very possible that they may look at that and say, you know what? And I included an attachment in this waiver. They may look at it and say, yeah, in 30 years your liability has dropped from 16 million down to 5 million. We're good with that. I have no way of predicting what they're going to do and what they're not going to do.
how about the creation of an OPEB trust fund? Is that something that we can get credit for?
Again, two things. Number one, I couldn't do it now because it requires board approval, so I would need to have get that approved before I could put it in the waiver. But the other thing is that it's something that has not been done in the past, and the only way that that would carry any weight is if you opened up the trust and if you receive board approval to put additional funding into it. That might carry weight. Opening up a trust fund now under the waiver would really have no impact.
But for example, if the millage were approved, then funds from that could go into a trust fund.
Correct. If this waiver is not approved, the next step would be a corrective action plan, which would include, hopefully, a successful millage and opening a trust fund to get that to the 40% funding ratio. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
So let me ask the question that's kind of laying on the table. Why would they give us a waiver, throwing out the millage, just ignoring that piece? I look at these numbers and I'm saying, why would I do that? It just seems ridiculous.
The only reason that I believe they might would be that we've already taken a major step, which is closing the plan. No more entrants are coming into this plan. We've gone from a defined benefits to a defined contribution plan. And over the next 50 years, it will be self-correcting. Because nobody else can enter, people that are currently in the plan will pass away and it'll kind of die of its own accord. So they may look at that and say, you've taken the major necessary step to solve this problem, which is closing the plan.
But I thought that part of the state's new emphasis on OPEB and funding was something shorter term. You know, not 50 years in the future, and we have to wait for everybody to die.
I sat through a training session with the state, and they're looking longer term. They know that these problems can't be addressed in 5 or 10 years, so they're looking for the plan to get you to the right position in 25, 30, or 35 years. Okay. I can't predict what they're going to do. This is new to them as well as it is new to us. But when you ask the question, why would they ever? Well, my only answer would be because we have closed the plan. It will self-correct itself over time. And, that would be the only reason why they would at this point without taking additional corrective actions.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else on the board? In the public? All righty. Need a motion to approve the resolution.
Mr.
Mark?
Supervisor.
Well, Mark, you want to do that? Make the motion?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve Resolution 2018-09-04-63, which authorized the Township Treasurer to apply for a waiver in accordance with Public Act 202 by submitting the attached Form 5584 to the State Treasurer no later than September 7th, 2018.
Motion's been made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Treasurer Clinton. Mr. Clerk, take the roll, please.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Supervisor Heising.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Next is item F2. This is a rescission of an IFT designation for R&D Enterprises, Inc. And Mr. Clerk, you can fill us in on this one.
Certainly. What came to our attention through the assessor's department that prior to December 31st, 2017, that R&D Enterprises had left the facility. They had received in 2005 an industrial facilities exemption certificate, and which was for both real property and at the time for personal property, and that by them vacating prior to the expiration of it invokes a statutory basis for revoking the certificate, and the assessing department has requested that we revoke this officially by resolution so they can turn this into the state and therefore have the appropriate taxes collected going forward.
All right. Any questions on this item?
No questions, just a comment that in the future, before we hand out or grant abatements under the IFT, it would be worth looking into an amendment to our current contracts, which calls for some type of a penalty clause that says if you pull out of this for any reason or do not meet the requirements, then you are subject to paying some of that tax abatement back. Because in this situation, I can't remember, Jerry, it was like 18 years they were here? Or,
Yeah,
they got real close, obviously.
they
There might
got
be a
close to the
situation where-
expiration. Yeah.
Yeah, they receive a 50% tax abatement, and then in 5 years, they pull out of town. I would like to, in the future, look at what type of penalty clause we can put into these agreements.
I think that's a reasonable idea.
Okay, any other comments? Questions from the board, from the public? All right, I need a motion on this.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Heitman.
I move to approve Resolution 2018-09-04-64, requesting the State Tax Commission revoke the Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate Number 2005-316 granted to R&D Enterprises, Inc., located at 46900 Port Street, Plymouth, Michigan 48170, pursuant to MCLA 207.5652.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Vorba. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Next up is item F3. This is approval of a grant agreement with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation for the Viper 911 dispatch system. As you recall, earlier this year, State Representative Jeff Noble secured $200,000 in the state of Michigan's FY 2018-19 budget, which begins October 1st, for a new Viper 911 dispatch system for the Plymouth Township. In order to obtain this grant pursuant to the state enabling legislation, the state has designated the Michigan Economic Development Corporation as the agency responsible for releasing and administering the grant pursuant to the legislation. So it is a contract with the MEDC, but this is not an economic development agreement of any sort. They're just the people who were selected to administer the grant. And you will see that this is identical to agenda item F4 for the new fire engine.
How much does the system cost, the Viper?
Well, we have everybody here from the police department to answer those questions.
It's $237,000 total.
So anyway, that's that. Any other questions? Any questions for the police? Questions from the public? Need a motion?
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Heitman.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve Resolution 2018-09-04-65, approving the grant agreement with the MEDC in the amount of $200,000 for the purpose of purchasing a new Viper 911 dispatch system, and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign same.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Vorba. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. Item F4 is a virtually identical agreement with the MEDC for $400,000. This is the money that was secured by State Representative Jeff Noble earlier this year for a new fire engine. The only twist to this proposed resolution or proposed motion is that this is made pursuant to an earlier board resolution where we authorized the purchase of the fire engine. At that time, as you recall, we went through all of the specific specs and requirements that we had requested of the new fire engine. So this motion references back to that resolution. Otherwise, it's the same agreement. Any questions from the board, from the public? All right. Is there a motion?
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Clerk?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve Resolution 2018-0904-66, approving the grant agreement with the MEDC in the amount of $400,000 for the purpose of purchasing a new fire engine pursuant to Board Resolution 2018-06-26-44, and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign the same.
Motion's been made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Vorva, yes. Treasurer Clinton?
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. Next is item F5, Police Department purchase and installation of one new 32 terabyte HD NVR server and 22 new Avigilon megapixel high-definition security cameras. Hopefully, someone over to my left knows more about this than I do. It looks like the chief and John Brothers. Which one of you guys are going to take that?
John did all the work. Lieutenant Brothers did the work, so I'll defer to you.
Okay, he's our techie guy.
Okay, so our closed circuit system was put in 2006 and 7 when the building was built. It is not high definition. It's an old analog system. It's at end of life. It's actually broken right now. It still records, but we actually have to load it onto a thumb drive, take it to another computer to get it to work. So they've kind of told us it's time. We had ASC come in, look at all of our stuff, and so we're going to go with Avigilon. It's what we currently have out at the soccer park. It's also in coordination with the panic button system, and we have a proposal for also to put this out at the township park, but that's been put on hold until the future. So long story short is all of the systems will tie together into one base system that we'll be able to monitor from the police department if we go with Avigilon.
And what's the coverage? Is the interior, the full interior, as well as the exterior?
Yes, so interior, in the 6 cells, we'll have a 360 high-definition camera in each cell. The exterior cameras that will be out on the front of the building here will be IR, infrared, low visibility for when the parking lot lights aren't on, so we'll still be able to see out there. We'll be changing a few of the cameras on that side of the building due to the Sally ports, or the carports being built after the fact. So we have to move some of the cameras around. But it's
Did we need to get competitive bids for this, or did you get competitive?
Yeah, yes, we did. We went out, I have the bid packets here, but this was, there were 3 bids. The first bidder did not bid on the specs as required. The next bidder was the highest bidder, and this vendor is the middle of the road, and he's been a long-time vendor for us and is familiar with our operations and our systems. I'd be happy to pass out the bid packets if anybody would like to see them.
Does this record audio in the cells?
yes.
I just noted recently on the news that someone had died in a cell recently. I can't remember where it was at, but I didn't know if we had audio.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Did we give any consideration at all to the long-term 60-month paying for credit with the idea that in 5 years, maybe the technology would be different, and maybe there'd be some benefit to us, or, I mean, for an additional $6,500 that it would cost us to extend the credit for 5 years. I didn't know if that would be something you guys, was the technology going to be that different in 5 years? I don't know.
Well, we hope to get at least 10 years out of these cameras.
Okay, 10.
Plus also, I think we need to mention that the funding is coming from the Federal Drug Forfeiture Fund, and it's easier and cleaner if we just go ahead and purchase these and let them run to the end of life
Okay,
than to get into a lease agreement or something like that.
okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions from board members? Questions from the public? Okay, somebody would like to make the motion? Mark?
I move to approve resolution number 2018-09-04-67, authorizing the Plymouth Township Police Department to purchase and install a 32 terabyte HD NVR server and 22 of Vigilon megapixel high-definition security cameras for an amount up to $56,848.40 out of federal forfeiture funds.
Thank you. Motion's been made by by Treasurer Clinton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Heitman,
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton,
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Next up is item 6, Police Department purchase of 2 2019 Ford Police Interceptor sedans. Lieutenant Kudra?
Thank you, sir. The police department is looking to purchase 2 additional, again, 2019 Ford Police Interceptor sedans. This is what you or I might refer to as our Taurus police vehicles. We currently operate 2 different types. We have Taurus, well, actually 3. We have Tauruses, Explorers, and we have 1 Ford Expedition. The reason that we're looking to purchase these vehicles at this time is the 2 vehicles that are next in the rotation up to be replaced are 2 Ford Interceptor sedans, so they are Tauruses. Ford is going to stop making those. The deadline to order them is September 15th. If we pass that deadline or we opt not to purchase these vehicles, we're going to have to still replace those vehicles next year. We will have to go to a different model of patrol car. When you change models of patrol cars, you have to buy all new equipment to upfit them as police cars, because I cannot take the equipment out of the Tauruses and put them into the Explorers. It will not fit. That's costly equipment. I would prefer to get another round of use out of it. Now, if we did have to do Explorers instead of Tauruses, if we opted not to purchase these at this time, another consideration is I've spoken to the fleet sales manager for Ford, and the Explorer is actually set to be completely redesigned for the 2020 model year. So if we were to go with Explorers in 2019 to replace these 2 Tauruses, we would get 2019 model year Explorers. I would buy all new equipment to upfit them, and then I would get 1 round of use out of that equipment because it would be a completely redesigned Explorer next time around. And we think this is a more cost-effective, a more responsible way to go about doing this.
Now, at some point, though, because Ford is not making the Taurus, at some point, we have to make a policy decision on what type of vehicle we want.
That is correct.
You know, I think that it's going to be very unusual for us to go to some kind of all SUV fleet. I mean, at some point, we have to start looking at another sedan. I know Chrysler has one. I think that's with the
Dodge
Charger, and I think Chevy makes one, but
They do not any longer. No, they stopped making.
No longer?
Yeah, they stopped making the Chevy Caprice and the Impala.
Okay.
So Chevy, the only thing they offer is the Tahoe.
Yeah.
But yes, you are correct, and we will be looking at another sedan, probably the Charger. But as Lieutenant Kudra pointed out, we figured it'll probably save us about $10,000, because that's about $5,000 a car is the cost of the equipment. So I guess we're just deferring the decision till next year as far as switching for probably 2020, I guess, is when we'd be looking at a different type of vehicle.
Right, okay. Very good. Any other questions from the board?
Just want to
Where are you
make
gonna
sure
put the-
everyone realizes this is from the federal forfeiture fund. This is not funds from the township. This is funds that were given to us that could go away at any time.
Correct.
Yep. Mark?
Would you take the two vehicles that you're going to be replacing, would they go to auction? Or would we keep those for some backup purpose?
They would go to auction. My understanding is that these vehicles were purchased with drug forfeiture money, so they have to be used for police purposes only, and once they are at the end of our use, we are to auction them, and I believe that money goes back into the forfeiture account. I'm not 100% positive on that.
But we would evaluate their, if they're useful for like the PSAs or police service aides, we may put them into service for them. We'll look at that when it's time to switch them out, look at the miles and the repairs on it.
Use it for
We'll
building
make that decision.
ordinance officer. Okay. When those are end of service life, how many miles would they have?
They're going to be, I would say, between 80 and 90,000 miles in that range.
All righty. Any other questions from the board, from the public? Then I am looking for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Clerk?
I move to approve Resolution 2018-0904-68, authorizing the Plymouth Township Police Department to purchase two 2019 Ford Police Interceptor sedans for an amount up to $56,914 out of the federal forfeiture funds.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Clerk Forba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton?
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Next up is item
Thank you.
F7, undercover self-storage, a storm drain agreement. Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As you may recall, as part of a development process, Wayne County requires the township to take acceptance of the maintenance of a stormwater system. What we have before you tonight is the stormwater agreement to pass that requirement onto the maintenance onto the developer. This project, undercover self-storage, is on Haggerty Road. They added additional surface lot park or storage in the rear. So what you have before you tonight is the storm drain agreement for undercover self-storage.
All right. Any questions from the board? From the public? Need a motion to adopt?
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Heitman.
I move to adopt Resolution 2018-09-04-69, authorizing the Township Supervisor to sign the Wayne County Permit M 49344 and approve the storm drain agreement with Undercover Self-Storage LLC and authorize the Township Supervisor and Clerk to execute same.
Thank you. Motion's made by Trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Treasurer Clinton. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Item F8 is, again, undercover self-storage. This is a water main easement. Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Supervisor. As part of this development project, a fire hydrant had to be extended for fire protection, thereby making it a public water main. The public water main then is in an easement so that the township can service it, and it is a requirement for the township board to approve all water main easements.
All
Happy
right.
to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? From the public? I'm also looking for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor?
Mr. Clerk.
I move to approve Resolution 2018-09-04-70, authorizing the township clerk, township attorney, and township engineers to sign the water main easement and forward it to Wayne County for recording.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton?
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Clerk Borba? Motion passed.
Thank you. Next up is item F9. This is a storm drain agreement for the expansion of Federal Mogul. Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Supervisor Heisey. Federal Mogul went through an expansion. They've recently completed the work out there. This is the storm drain agreement for Federal Mogul for that expansion. As you recall, previously, Wayne County requires the township to take jurisdiction over the stormwater system and the maintenance. This stormwater agreement turns the maintenance requirement over to the developer, the owner.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? From the public? I need a motion on this item.
I moved, sorry, Gary, I moved to adopt Resolution 2018-09-04-71, authorizing the Township Supervisor to sign the Wayne County Permit M-48464 and approve the storm drain agreement with Federal Mogul LLC, and authorize the Township Supervisor and Clerk to execute same.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Treasurer Clinton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Dorchevitz. Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. Next up is item F10. This is the introduction of the draft 2019 Township Budget. State law requires that the supervisor present a draft budget to the board on or before September 1st of each year. This draft budget was sent to the board electronically on August 30th, and the hard copy was placed into your agenda for tonight. This is certainly not your last opportunity to review the budget. We plan on having this as a standing agenda item throughout the fall and past the election. This budget assumes that the millage will not pass, so this presents a worst case scenario. It's really not totally worst case, because there are some things that are in this budget that we could still take out, but I wanted to at least get the discussion going by leaving in some items that are still somewhat discretionary. But as we've predicted, the OPEB and pension liabilities continue to take a bigger and bigger chunk out of the general fund budget, and that's why we have voted to place a millage on the November ballot to assist us in meeting these financial obligations over the next 2 decades.
So how do you want to go through it, or?
Well, really, for tonight, it was just more of an introduction. We can answer any, broad picture questions that you might have, but we will continue to present this as an ongoing agenda item. Again, this is a draft. It's a first draft. I would like to get police and fire to present at a later meeting, as this is their, as bulk of the budget are their operations. And I think between myself and Cindy Kushner, we can answer any of the other non-public safety questions, and Mark Clinton, any other non-public safety questions that might come up.
Was there something about the timing of this that made it necessary for us to have this special meeting or something?
No, the special meeting was really, the main purpose tonight for the special meeting was for the OPEB waiver.
Oh, okay.
Because we didn't have we only had one meeting in August.
Oh,
Yeah.
And because we didn't have a second meeting in August, we had to get this filed within a certain amount of time, 45 days.
Yeah.
so,
And then,
okay.
as what happens with special meetings or meetings that we think are going to be light, other things pop up, and people will say, oh, I got to get this done. Or for example, these grant agreements, we really want to get moving on that so we can buy this stuff and that we can have the money in hand to do it. So we don't want to hold the state at bay when they're gifting us
Yeah.
$600,000.
So maybe we could hit on a couple of
Sure.
main. I couldn't remember why this number was 6.9 million here for 2018 projected activity versus. I didn't get this.
Cindy?
I can take that one, Cindy,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the total amount. What we do at the end of the year is we take that total amount for the property taxes and we split it out in a predefined ratio between general operating, police, and fire. So if you went to the 2019 budget and added that line item for general operating, plus the property taxes for law enforcement down below,
Oh,
right there, plus the
Yeah.
property taxes for fire, you would get to a little over $7 million.
yeah, okay.
It just, it wasn't split out for
Okay,
that's kind of done at the end of the year.
okay. So let's see.
2-3 and 3-2. 5-5-5.
So state shared revenue, you're assuming is going to go up a little bit.
Yeah, that's not an assumption, that's a report that we get from the state that's online, and so that's their budget that we're adopting.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I didn't prepare my questions. I thought we were going to go through it, but it's fine. We can do it this way.
And again, we're not, this isn't expected to be a exhaustive review. It's really a statutory requirement, and,
Okay.
Cindy and I have been working on this for a few months, and I know between Cindy and myself, we've met with the relevant department heads that have the most input on this, and
Okay. So district court fees basically drop?
that we are assuming that there are no district court fees anymore, and that any fees that are generated above and beyond the anticipated expenditures would be, all the communities have agreed that we will bundle those funds and use it to pay down pension and OPEB for the court, because they're under the same requirements now that we are.
Okay, let's see, let me go through. Property taxes.
I think I'd like to, over, the next couple of months, in addition to police and fire, we're looking at some significant investments by the IT department as well. I think I'd like to get Bob Jenks in here for at least 15, 20 minutes to describe those. I still don't understand the need for $72,000 battery backup to our system. I'm not sure if that couldn't be accomplished someplace else or some other way.
Okay.
But anyway, my point is I'd like to get Bob to present what his requirements are for the year.
And that's fine, Mark, and I encourage that, but just as a reminder to me, just shoot me an email at some point,
Okay.
and then I can get Bob working on that.
So then we'll be tweaking these numbers
Oh, yeah.
now.
Yeah, I mean, I put stuff in here from my vantage point and from Cindy's vantage point, even though it's your first shot at a draft, it's pretty much our fourth iteration. I've taken a lot out from department head requests, but we've also kept some things in that I really want us to think about. And then also, if we have to take it out later on, we still could. It's just going to be, it'll make things difficult in other areas. And I'm thinking specifically of parks. You'll see some things in the parks budget that they've asked for, which I think will ultimately allow us to further reduce the part-time staff. And we are looking, which was Mr. Kermey's suggestion last budget year, to look at a private contractor to do all of our lawn maintenance outside of Township Park. And we do have that factored into this budget as well. It's not something I'd want to take out, but there's other things in this budget that we'll go through later that I don't know if they are completely critical, but they're going to be things that we might still have to remove.
Two things jumped out at me. One, I think, based on the building permits and plumbing and heating, electrical permits, the new rates that we just approved in the past few months, these numbers are probably going to be low. Based on history, I think the new numbers are going to definitely reflect our new permit costs. The second thing is, I would again like to request an org chart. I requested one last month and was told we don't have a current one. But with some of the things going with the new retirements and people moving around, I think this is definitely something that we should be reviewing. And
Yeah, in fact, we do have one. I don't.
a new one?
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think you asked me, but we do have one. It's been, it's hot off the press, probably like 10 days old.
I'll send it out tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you have the new one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
perfect.
new HR.
We have the new one, too.
Is that, everybody's on it?
Yeah, it assumes that Joanne is no longer here, and it provides for some other changes that we've made in DPW.
And then in the clerk's office, you have, so you have clerical and part-time going up by 4%, 5%. Do you want to get into that now, or
Sure, if you would like. We
Yeah.
have, go ahead.
right in here?
Yeah, we have, we're allowing for the possibility of, because right now we have myself and Sandy, and then a part-time administrative assistant for 3 days. We're looking at a second part-time person for 1 or 2 days. And when you realize that all of the issues coming into the clerk's department now are pretty much getting statutorily set, along with, we're getting a lot of requests for FOIA. And you recall the one FOIA that just came in a few days ago would probably cost us, I calculated, over $36,000 to accomplish. And this was, yes, a very big FOIA request. And
What
then
was
we just
it?
got another one just today.
You saw that one.
Did you see it? It was in
No,
the
I-
news, yeah.
Yeah,
been-
every vote for the last election,
From 2016, we got a
2016.
big request all across the state of Michigan.
Everybody
It's going to
got it.
cost us $36,000 to comply with it, and we would need extra personnel for it. We got another one today that's probably going to cost half that much.
Every vote?
They want a copy of every ballot in the 2016 presidential election, along with all of the absentee ballot request forms, copies of all of the envelopes.
Don't they have to pay for it, though?
Yes, but we still have to provide it in the budget.
somebody has
You
to
know,
do the work.
Oh,
we can charge them, but we still have to get the people here to do it.
I've been,
Yeah,
I
that was a large one, so it's about
It's every-
$36,000.
Yeah,
And we received a second one today that's probably going to be half that again.
wow. So, okay, so this is additional staff, it's not,
It's like, one person for 1 or 2 days,
okay.
part-time.
it's a good start.
Okay, so elections is, that's right, I meant to ask that. So elections is now folded under, it's not called out separately.
Well, because there's no elections in 19,
We're not
right?
planning any elections for 19.
I knew
Although
that.
we're hearing rumors that possibly there will be some.
Okay. I guess, yeah, we don't have to do it tonight. I would like to know some of the detail.
And, you know, Cindy and I are always ready, and Mark, if you want to schedule something, stop in, get your questions answered in more detail. That's what we're here for, and we'd be happy to help you out.
So just going down to the bottom line then, let me just fast forward. This assumes no millage or no revenue enhancement from additional millage. The bottom line would be that we would go from 15.7 million in spending to 16.3. And that would be, that 16.3 would exceed revenues by 1.16 million, correct?
That's the way the numbers look on the balance sheet, but those are very quirky numbers, and we can take a deeper dive tonight, or we can do it later, but Cindy can answer that question in great detail. Do you have any handouts on that perhaps tonight?
I do.
And the simple answer, Bob, is that there's a lot of money coming in this year, like the grants, property, sale of property. We've also got some good news. that there is money left over from the road enhancement grant that Wayne County provided us. This would have been in 2015. We as a board voted on this the board voted on this in 2016 and 15 to do SAD projects. But what was left over, this current board voted on in 2017 to do crack sealing. So I got a phone call from the county about 3 weeks ago, and they said, you still have $245,000 left over in your account, and you need to have a plan that's road-related to spend this money. And we have long sought a sidewalk gap replacement program so that we can better link up sidewalks along roads like North Territorial and Ann Arbor Road and Ann Arbor Trail. So we're gonna bump that money up by a certain amount. We're gonna make that an even $300,000. So there's a lot of pass-through money like that I believe is counted as revenue, but that is being spent in the 2019 budget, which puts the numbers out of whack. And so I'd like Cindy to give a more professional answer than what I can.
Well, in the packet that Jerry handed out, I have Exhibits A through D as tools to help you get through the budget and see what we're doing. But if you look at Exhibit A, on that exhibit, we are lining up revenue and expenditures for 2018 and 2019 side by side, because it's hard to look at the effect of this 2019 budget without understanding the effect of 2018, because it's kind of quirky this year. So if you look at the first three lines in 2018, we have $845,000 in excess of expenditures. So we're going, way, great year. Then you look over to 2019, and as you said, Trustee Dorshevitz, we're losing or we're expending almost 1.2 million more than we're taking in. But if you go to that gray highlighted box in the middle of the page where it talks about non-recurring transactions, you're going to see that in 2018, we've got $700,000 in revenue that we don't spend until 2019. So it makes 2018 look really fat. And then when you get to 2019, when you do the expenditures, it uses up the cash. So you'll see that we've already got the proceeds of the cell tower. We're expecting the first half of the MEDC grants for the fire truck and Viper. And next year we expect the other half. And then you see down at the bottom the purchase in 2019 of the $663,000 fire truck and the purchase of the Viper. You also see the City of Plymouth pension settlement of $1.1 million. That doesn't really have an effect on 18 or 19 because we got the check, but we plan on turning around and funding the MERS with it. So that'll happen in the same year.
And that was, and let me just say, I mean, that was always the plan with the City of Plymouth settlement money. It basically hits our budget, and then we write a check to MERS. So I don't want anybody to think that we're rolling in dough or that the worst is over and clear skies ahead and all that. Our long-term financial situation has not changed from when Treasurer Clinton made his presentation a couple months ago, and the millage request is still absolutely necessary.
So how much would the millage generate?
First year, about 2.1 million.
Cindy, the way I kind of look at this on your very first page, the Exhibit A, at least for the sake of the other board members, this is the way I think about it. I always like to break it up in my mind in terms of the recurring operational revenues and expenses, followed by the one-time line items.
Right.
So what this shows is that in 2019, we're going to have a $479,000 loss in just general day-to-day operations.
Correct.
A part of that, a pretty significant part of that, and we've been talking about it all along, is that our OPEB number is going up and our pension number is going up. About 300,000 of that is increased pension and OPEB, okay? So when you pull that away, now you're down to about $180,000 of additional expenses over revenues. In my mind and my simplistic way of thinking about this, that's, to me right now, that's the fat in the budget, okay? That's where you have to start sharpening the pencil, because I don't like to submit a budget where you're operating at a loss, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, we got to start looking at how we can get rid of that $180,000.
And some of that will be contractual increases in wages.
You know what I'd also like to point out to the board, thank you for bringing that up, is this budget assumes no pay raises except for people that have step-ups in their contracts. Even though we have 5 contracts that are expiring this year, any effect from that, any potential effect, is not included in the budget.
Cindy, did you put the 5-mile property, 5-mile sale revenue any place in this budget?
The 5-mile property sale was in the 2018 budget.
So it's still in the 2018
Right.
budget? Okay,
So it's counted as revenue in 2018.
okay.
And then also to the board, we're going to be preparing third quarter budget adjustments in October, and we hope to have a better feel for how we're going to end up with 2018. And one of the critical pieces of 2018 revenue is that sale of the 5-mile property. So depending on what happens, we may have to move that money into 2019 if we're not going to get it by the end of the year. And we've already talked about the effect that would have on the budget and cash flow and things like that, and we'll be okay.
And then on,
Just on the 5-mile property, since it was brought up, I mean, we are working very closely with Hillside on the due diligence portion. I just gave them, I asked for a status report last week, and they're still adhering to their timeline. Our side is cooperating fully. They're getting cooperation from the other agencies. They may need just kind of a heads up to you, Dave Richmond. I think they need county approval for something. So we certainly don't want that to hold things up, and we may need to pull some levers on that one. But everything is still on track as of today, that the sale would be consummated before the end of the year.
and then Cindy, on Exhibit B, then, I think I'm following it. So the fund balance, the last 4 items are, because those are essentially earmarked money, it's encumbered money.
Correct.
So what's the $752,000 non-spendable due to golf course loan again?
Okay. We've advanced money to the golf course several years ago. I think the original amount was $500,000. We've been charging 4% interest. In addition, we've been advancing them some monies through our due froms. And at the end of last year, 2017, they were showing a working capital deficit, so we had to take some of that due from money and roll it into the loan, and to make them okay for their financial statements. So, but basically, we can't spend that money because it's a non-cash asset.
Oh,
So it's sitting on our books as an asset, but there's no cash generated from it yet.
Interesting.
So, for
It's an
example,
outstanding loan to the golf course.
Correct.
for sake of argument, if the golf course were to cease operations, that money, we have to eat that, basically.
Correct.
That then becomes a loss.
Correct.
Is that a,
I don't recall ever loaning them $500,000. I would have remembered that.
It's
Is that a-
been, it
I mean-
happened before I got here.
is that a one-time write-off, or can we write that off over time, or what?
Once it's not collectible,
It's right off.
it's written off.
Wow. And that's something, because we are in the process right now of soliciting RFPs for, for management of the golf course, and I think that's something that we would have to be cognizant of and be straight with whoever we would select, that this is a big nut that we would have to work with the operator to address in some way.
So what does this budget assume about fire transports?
It assumes nothing right now.
Just business as usual.
It assumes status quo.
Which
We-
was like, I mean, in the budget, it's 120,000, I believe.
120,000
Right.
for
Is that
transport revenue.
consistent with
Yeah.
I think
actuals?
we'll finish this year at about 110,
Okay.
so it certainly isn't a dramatic assumption change.
So then I'm looking at your last sheet, if I may, Exhibit C.
Yeah.
So this is really helpful. So these are the
Yeah.
decreases in 2019 and the increases.
Right, so what this is attempting to help you understand is that, as Mark pointed out in Exhibit A, that if you look at the operations for 2018, we're looking at $145,000 revenue over expense. But for 2019, we're looking at more expense than revenue in operations of $479,000. Okay, so really that means that's an effect of $624,000 from one year to the next. That you've lost $624,000 from one year to the next. So what I was doing in Exhibit C, this was a real rough computation, but I thought it may help put into perspective what that $600,000 is made out of, or made from. We had some revenue factors, but by far the biggest impact has been in the expense area, where we're increasing expenditures by like $845,000. But I've also showed on there how we've tried to save money to the tune of $445,000, but what we saved has not been, we've not been able to overcome the additional expenses. And as part of that, as Mark alluded to, we have the big pension increase is the biggest one. We have, as I said, we have 5 labor contracts expiring, so there's attorney fees. There's bringing the police force up to the full 30 sworn officers, a new dispatch service supervisor. We haven't had one for a while. 3 new firefighters. Someone mentioned earlier about the increases in the IT purchases. On Exhibit D, I have what all those things are, as Bob had listed them for me. So Exhibit D, I guess I'm kind of jumping forward, but Exhibit D shows the equipment purchases and/or repairs that are being made to some of our other fixed assets. So in that equipment purchase, Exhibit D includes the new Viper, it includes the new fire truck, it includes all of the things Bob says we need for IT, some smaller items for other departments, but
Cindy, do you recall, going back to Exhibit C, do you recall what the increase in computer services is for $46,000?
I do. Actually, I have a list, if you'd like to
Isn't that in your?
go through it a little bit more in detail, because,
Isn't that in your Exhibit D?
yeah,
But it's not everything.
well, I have detail that explains it a lot further, and one of the reasons for the increase is, let me see, we have to be off the Windows Server, and there's all kinds of things with updating the new server. And like I said, I can share the detail with you.
Okay.
I already cut things out of that budget. He had
Yes, you
wanted a
did.
new phone service. I cut that out, and there were a couple other things that I removed. I think the issue with the, and I'm not an IT guy by a long shot, but I think one of the things that we were looking at was this, that's what you had mentioned, Mark, this battery backup
Right.
system or backup system. And I know we had had some issues over the summer with backup of some critical computers that failed us. And I don't know if that was the fault of the devices that we had here in the building or perhaps maybe over at the police station. But, you know, we've had some issues pop up.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, just about UPS in general. I mean, the batteries get old. And the thing about UPS, unless you test it, you don't know if it's going to survive the next time you have an outage. And I mean, we go through that all the time. You get a power outage and the UPS fails because it hasn't been tested in, a year or two. Happens all the time.
So that's sort of the big picture for tonight, and we'll be back to answer other questions and have a couple other more formal presentations from police and fire, and they're both aware of that. They know what's going to happen.
It's a good
Okay.
start. Good start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got to start
Thank you,
somewhere, and it's not pretty, but we wanted to give you what we're up against, and there is room for further cuts. I mean, I'm confident, Mark, that we can certainly hit that 180,000 figure, but it's going to result in, we're at a point then where maybe some hiring decisions and some other equipment purchases will not be contemplated. So, all right, all set?
So
Okay.
feel free to email or call and set up appointment to stop in or call.
We'll come see you, yeah.
Stop in, say hello, we'll buy you coffee, and it'll be fun.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, so. Okay, that's all for item F10. There's no motion or receive and file or anything like that required on that one. So next up is item G, supervisor and trustee comments. We are going to have a meeting next Tuesday. That's our regular meeting. And just to give you a preview, we will have a presentation by the Michigan Land Bank regarding the proposed creation of an MITC, that's the 5-mile corridor, an MITC Brownfield Authority presentation and resolution. We also have a Brownfield public hearing and hopeful approval of a Brownfield plan for the Verita building site, which is the first site to be constructed on the old Dehoko prison property. A tribute to Russell Kirk, and a contract with the Plymouth Rain for the maintenance and use of the soccer fields at Lake Point. And then budget discussion. So busy agenda, and then things in September are going to be pretty busy. Hopefully they'll cool off a little bit in October. We did receive 2 responses to our RFP for ambulance services, for EMS services, one from HVA and the other from, what was the other guys? Yep.
Peristar?
Yeah, that's it.
That's correct.
So you're going to have to abstain on that one.
I was going to say, that's you,
'Cause
right? Yeah.
that's a clear call there, not like some of the others we've seen. So anyway, that's all I've got for now. Bob?
Nothing.
Okay, Gary?
Oh, yeah, I got a list. Chuck told me to do
Oh,
this.
thanks.
We're having coffee with Kurt on Friday?
Oh, you don't have to say that.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
You see the storm drain and water main easements on the agenda tonight, some of the things we talked about. We will see a lot more of these as we get new rules from Wayne County, plus new buildings going in and existing buildings changing the way that they look. Red lights. Just a quick reminder to everybody, school's back in session. A lot of running the red lights lately. I saw a gigantic truck running through 2 red lights, one at Sheldon and Ann Arbor Road, and it was just red as can be. It wasn't even close. So please, the police are something that they're watching out for now, so please be careful with that. The last thing I got is I had 4 calls today on all the signs we have. I think the supervisor got some calls as well. I know this is a good thing for the Plymouth community, but again, it's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye out for. Let's be consistent in our enforcement or lack of enforcement, if that's the case.
Well, just to comment on that, since you mentioned it, obviously our policy is that we do not tolerate or accept lawn signs of any nature in the public easements. This weekend is a real challenge because of Fall Fest. We have some wonderful community organizations, Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, Civitans. Everybody has a fundraiser this weekend. And as a result, we have, I think, an extraordinarily high number of signs that have been placed this week to promote those events. It puts us in a very difficult spot because we are not to regulate based on content. We have to regulate based on location. So location being the easement between the sidewalk and the street. So what we're doing on a case, the signs are, some of the signs were very cleverly placed this time. They're kind of straddling the easement, or sometimes it's hard to tell if they're in the easement or not. So you may see some that have not moved, but for many others, especially along Ann Arbor Road here today, a lot of those signs were placed in the adjacent private property that was nearby. And as a Plymouth Rotarian, I have to be the bearer of bad news to my members and let them know what's going on. We're trying to move them onto private property as much as possible. But this year, I've surprised by the number of signs that we've seen from all of the different groups. And it's a challenge for all of us. The city has the same challenges. But we're doing the best we can, but we really encourage everybody to put your signs on private property whenever possible. Okay, Jerry?
Thank you. As you know, we had a banner turnout for the primary election. I'm expecting an equally higher fall election for November. So those of you who can get an absentee ballot, I would highly recommend it because I think the lines will be long. So please give that some thought.
Now, if you're a certain age, do you automatically qualify?
Well, you automatically receive an application, but you still have to answer one of the questions correctly.
Okay. Mark?
Nothing here.
All right, very good. Moving on to public comments and questions. 3 minutes. You want to come on up? Sure.
My name is Robert Montgomery. I live at 40672 Newport Drive, off of Haggerty. I just read Sunday's Observer, and quoting the words here, it says, Mr. Heisey called the Mitchell case shameful. Well, in my mind, when people steal you off you, that's more than shameful. That's outrageous and scandalous. When public officials can steal from you, not you alone, but the public, then I think it gets me to a point that it says right here that Heisey blames, that he blames lies with Price and his two swords. Them people are gone. We got rid of them. Don't talk about them. Talk about what is the board's feeling on this Mr. Mitchell? No one seems to know when he started, when he left here. He's had equipment that was delivered to his house, new equipment, then some other a buddy of his picks up equipment. Don't they have, when I worked, if they were getting new equipment in, they would invite all the employees to come down and where it was stored and what it did. Like the machine, the wonderful machine that stuffs the papers in on Sunday, it puts all these beautiful ads, all one big, they used to call it the merry-go-round. They did away with a lot of people because they did stuff, but they had the guts to just show you what they were purchasing and what you'd have to operate with. This, I don't know what the board's feeling is on this, but it looks like nothing's going to happen to this individual. I don't know. Maybe you can answer my question.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. I think it's safe to say, Bob, that none of us at this table voted to hire Mike Mitchell. None of us at this table voted to hire Shannon Price. And you can shake your head, but Shannon Price was hired by a majority of the former board. He hired Mike Mitchell, who was his right-hand man, his political right-hand man, a Republican Party operative, and he put him into he created a recreation director position for him. We have reason to, and don't forget, we are the guys.
And grants.
And grants, sorry, yeah, that's right. Easily to forget. It's our board, and it's our police chief, and our police officers, and our park staff, our new park staff, that uncovered these irregularities, and that led to the investigation, which led to Mr. Mitchell being found with this stolen township property in his house in Livonia. And so really it's our board that was proactive to identify the problem, to notice that there were things missing, and to make sure that Mr. Mitchell was investigated and prosecuted. He pled guilty to a federal felony of public property over $10,000. That's on his record forever, and he will be suffering a criminal penalty for that. Now, he could get up to 10 years. I don't think he's going to get that because, to my knowledge, he has no prior record. But he may end up getting probation, especially, I don't think this investigation's over.
Well,
So if Mr. Mitchell has information on other people who were affiliated with the township, then he would get some credit for that. But I don't think this is over yet.
I'll add one thing too, and I share your sentiment. Abuse of the public trust is about the worst thing people can do because that undermines our society. We have to have trust in our government and our public officials, and for that reason, this case was investigated and prosecuted by the FBI. And the FBI would normally, if in the private sector, they wouldn't get involved in a financial crime unless it was $1 million. But when it comes to public sector, any amount of public corruption, because that's how serious it is. And this is public corruption, plain and simple.
what gets me, time clock fraud. Isn't it 60,000 he was making? Wasn't that enough? He has to steal. Sounds like our ex-mayor of Detroit. Something like that guy.
Well, as I said, I don't know if this investigation's necessarily over yet, so I'll leave it at that.
All right, that's all I wanted to know. I thought it was going to be ended.
Thank you for bringing that out.
He was in a different state. I thought he'd just escape us.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr.
I
Heitman.
move we adjourn.
Motion is made by Trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Forva. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.